Welcome to Talk the Walk. I'm Sarah Wong. The debate over animal welfare has intensified after the government ordered a mass culling of more than 2,500 pet hamsters imported from the Netherlands. The drastic measure follows suspicions that animal-to-human transmission triggered a Delta cluster involving dozens of cases. Some panicked pet owners abandoned their hamsters, while animal activists decried the government's order. Let's bring in McCoy, Barrister and Hong Kong Animal Law and Protection Organization to discuss the situation. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Actually, 2 weeks ago, the organization that you founded called a decision to cull hamsters completely inhumane and unnecessary. Has the current fifth wave, which is the worst outbreak Hong Kong has experienced so far since the start of the pandemic, changed your mind?
No, absolutely not. I think the decision to kill hamsters, innocent animals, as a way to achieve a zero COVID status in Hong Kong is just completely barbaric and completely inhumane. And unfortunately, it just represents and reflects the lack of animal welfare standards that we have in Hong Kong, which we just continue to see.
Now, we know that the decision stemmed from suspicions of animal-to-human transmission. Some hamsters are suspected to spread the Delta variant to their human owners. Now, a study published in The Lancet, that is a peer-reviewed medical journal, suggested that pet hamsters can indeed spread the coronavirus to humans after taking viral swabs and blood samples from pet animals. Is that evidence you need to justify the culling of thousands of the small animals?
Well, I think the decision to cull is one that was reached too quickly. I mean, there are other options that could have been explored, including testing of the hamsters, actually quarantining some of these hamsters, but the fact that we've gone from zero, letting the hamsters live, to 10, which is effectively killing the hamsters, just fails to even contemplate all of the other options that are available. I mean, the fact is, any hamster that lives isolated inside a home in Hong Kong, in an apartment in Hong Kong, which has never been outside, which has never had interactions with any other people apart from family, will not get COVID. They will not get COVID. It's only when someone with the disease or the infection comes into contact with the animal, that's when we perhaps see the animal carrying, signs of having COVID, and thereafter perhaps, as Lancet may have said, the possibility of further transmission. But it's so rare and it's so minute that the decision to cull as a blanket policy it just doesn't make any sense.
Now, you mentioned quarantine. You suggested quarantine as a potential alternative to mass culling. Now, we know that 2 pet cats owned by a close contact of a COVID patient have also tested positive and were sent to quarantine in one of the government's facilities. Now, some experts said that lack of biosafety confinement facilities in Hong Kong made it difficult to treat and care for those animals that are in their care. And also there's a high risk of transmission, that the infected animals will spread the virus inside the laboratory to other animals. So it sounds like the alternative is also not so ideal, isn't it?
Well, the fact is, the current mode, which is we're going to kill the hamsters, is a step too far. Now, anything in between needs to be explored, and the reason why something isn't or can't be done cannot be a lack of funds or a lack of space. I mean, these are living creatures that we're talking about. We can't just go, oh, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the money to look after these animals, therefore we're going to kill them because, hey, they're expendable. That can't be the answer.
I see. Now, it sounds like that you are at odds of the government's point of view. The authorities said they have no choice but to take this drastic step in order to eliminate the coronavirus. From the government standpoint, the sacrifice of these small animals are necessary to protect public health. Do you think that's a binary choice with an impossible balance to strike? And what would you suggest the government to do otherwise at the resource that's currently at their disposal?
Well, I think the decision fails to even consider the relationship that people have with their pets, and I'm not talking cats and dogs. I'm talking about even hamsters, and of course, cats and dogs are at the forefront of our minds when we're talking about companion animals and what animals we have at pets. But a large proportion of people in Hong Kong have rabbits, chinchillas, hamsters as well. They are also treated like family. So, I mean, the fact is the government fails to even consider this very aspect in making its decision. So, I mean, that is fundamentally flawed. It can't be that because there's an inkling that something will happen, we're going to, break apart this family per se. So what would I do? I mean, I've suggested the testing, I've suggested quarantine, I've suggested, other methods such as that. It's everything in between that's not killing the hamsters that should have been explored.
Now, I know that you, speaking of the family and companion of animals, I know that you yourself, your household also have pet cats.
Yes.
So hypothetically, if your pets are infected with COVID, tested positive, as a pet owner, what would you do?
Well, if my pets tested positive, it would probably mean that one of us in the household is also testing positive. I mean, our cats are solitary. They stay in this apartment for 100% of the time, so they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, if the option is there to just stay in the house and quarantine with the animals, with the rest of the family, that's what I would do. The other issue that I have, if this hypothetical ever happened, which is something which I've thought about before, is our cats are rescue cats, so they've seen a lot of trauma in their life. They've seen a lot of stressors, and they've finally found a place which they're happy and comfortable. I worry what would happen to my animals if they were taken away to a government facility. I mean, they're on special diets, special medications. Are my cats going to be well looked after in these government facilities? And I genuinely worry about that. And I think that's also the worry that a lot of people in Hong Kong have. I mean, what will happen to my pet? I mean, one of the reasons and one of the things that we've seen with this hamster situation is that the AFCD have required people with hamsters to hand them over to them.
Right.
One of the things that they say is once you do so, you sign a waiver form which says you give up your rights to that animal, and also you're not allowed to ask about that animal ever again. So for me, that just means that once the hamster leaves your side or your control, that's it. And that's a great worry for me. I mean, I don't ever want that to happen to my animals, and I'm sure no pet owners would ever want that for their animals as well.
Kim, all the controversies, the hamster situation, quarantine cats, and the current situation we're witnessing, compulsory use of Leave Home Safe app in many areas, and also vaccination pass that's about to be launched in a short notice. Like everything, this spate of coronavirus restrictions, the debate surrounding them only occurred because Hong Kong adheres strictly to the zero-COVID policy. So my question for you, I guess, is do you see this kind of protection of animal welfare, be it civil liberties and some kind of certain degree of freedom, is fundamentally incompatible with the government's ultimate goal to eliminate the coronavirus in Hong Kong?
That's an incredibly good question, and it's one that I've considered quite at length. I mean, the decision to continue and maintain a zero COVID policy is one that is largely unrealistic, in my humble opinion. I mean, we see the rest of the world moving on from this, moving on from experiencing COVID to now living with COVID with restrictions and just ensuring that people remain safe. I mean, the rest of the world begins to open up, whereas Hong Kong, given what's happened in the last, 2, 3, 4 days, we're going backwards. We're regressing to what's happened 2 years ago. Everyone's moving forward. We're going backwards, and that is because you have this zero COVID policy. And in order to maintain this policy, you will do whatever it takes to ensure that you can meet that target. And when the target is something that is rather arbitrary or even unrealistic, how you get there is going to be a big problem. And there may be instances where, completely drastic measures are taken. And I would say that the culling of 2,000 hamsters is just one of those examples that the government are trying to implement in order to attain something that's unachievable.
All right, let's pick it up after the break. Talk to What will be back in a moment. Stay with us.